Okay, it is roughly 5 p.m. and we are waiting on a special guest. And I've got a little streamer down at the bottom there. Robert Breedlove is scheduled to come on, and he has a podcast called What is Money? Podcast.com. And we've got a couple of folks that are in early. Jason's in the house hanging out, and he says, rumor has it Craig will be selling his Bitcoin live at 5 p.m. Don't miss history. That would be a historic moment. That absolutely would be. But I wouldn't hold my breath for that one. And I said it's going to be a really big show. And Briefit Dance is in the house, and she says she can't wait for things to get started. And notice the orange livery on the comments. That's the Bitcoin colors. Ray is in the house. He's hanging out. He says, "What's up?" And Kyle's in the house from Los Angeles, and he says, "Hey guys." So that's the, let me know, do you still have to watch where you walk, like on some of the sidewalks in that area? Is it still a little bit dicey there in Los Angeles? And it's been a little while. There's a lot of panic in the Bitcoin community, and we see this every cycle. And a lot of folks are panicking, and Bitcoin's dead. You know, the articles, I think there's like 500 of them now by major news organizations that say that Bitcoin is dead or has died. And then so they just keep, the drumbeat keeps going. But unfortunately for all these naysayers, Bitcoin also keeps going. Block by block, about every 10 minutes, there's a new block on the network. And also some of us keep buying Bitcoin. And I think we've got Robert in the house. I'm going to try to add him here. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm hearing you loud and clear. You can hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
All right. You're looking sharp. I like your setup there. We just went live. We got some folks live in the chat. One of the comments, I'll put it up here. Jason says, rumor has it that Craig's going to be selling his Bitcoin live on the show at 5 p.m. I told him, I said, don't hold your breath for that one. He actually told me the other day that he sold a bunch of his Bitcoin. And I said, man, this isn't really the right time to sell it. But that's not what this show is about. We're not going to be talking about buying and selling Bitcoin. We're going to be talking about what Bitcoin is all about. And you talk about freedom. I listen to all of your podcasts. There's a lot of signal in every one of them. And for people that are not aware of you, can you just give us your background real quick, the elevator pitch of what you're about and how your focus turned to Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the very short version. So my background is in accounting and finance, master's degree in accounting and finance. Okay. Thanks, sweetie. That was my little helper checking in. I have a certified public accounting degree, and then I was pretty much a career CFO before getting into Bitcoin. I had actually discovered the problems with money before Bitcoin when I found the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And so my conclusion after going down that rabbit hole was that the central bank is the core problem in the world. I don't think there's a bigger problem. You remove the central bank, you get more peace, less theft, more sustainable civilization. So I'm not saying it's the solution to every problem, but my goodness, if you could fix one thing in the world, I don't see why you'd fix anything but that. And, but it took me a while. I discovered Bitcoin in like 2014, but it took me a few years to really get into the rabbit hole and understand that this is the solution to the monopolization of money. So yeah, that's kind of my background. And now I run a podcast called the What is Money Show that we talk about all the related ideas to the separation of money and state, which seems to be almost everything in the world. It just changes everything. So we have podcasts on topics as far afield as metaphysics and as close to home as, economics 101.
And so backing up a little bit, you said when you first heard about Bitcoin, did you put on the back burner, or what was your initial reaction? And then what finally brought you back around to Bitcoin?
I'll always kick myself for this, but I'm convinced that I just wrote it off based on the name. I
Okay.
just thought it sounded ridiculous, like Bitcoin. And I got kind of maybe I was a little bit arrogant at the time too. I was like, oh, I know how money works. I've read the books about central banking. This thing might be something one day, but Bitcoin is likely version 1 of what will become, maybe version 50 will be the thing that
Mhm.
really matters. That was just my standard, I guess, bias, right? It was this bias that I took upon it. But I came in, like a few years later, I came in and looked much more closely at everything. Well, I was
Mhm.
looking at crypto assets in general, trying to understand their valuation fundamentals and the technology, et cetera. And it was that process that acquainted me with the deeper aspects of Bitcoin. And that is the rabbit hole that I have been unable to return from ever since.
My initial reaction was that this thing's going to be shut down, that the
Hmm.
government is not going to stand for this thing. And I first heard about it very early, maybe 2012-ish, and I just dismissed it. It was a friend of mine that I played tennis with from Canada that had listened to Russia Today with Max Kaiser, and he
Hmm.
had learned through there, and he kept telling me, "Hey, you got to get some of this Bitcoin stuff." And he explained it to me. It's outside of government and all this, and I said, "They're just not going to let this thing survive." Then a couple of years later, when it was still surviving, I said, man, I better take a look at this thing because this is really interesting. If it could pull off what it's supposed to do, it's really interesting. But my initial reaction was there's no way. Now, I have some questions I want to go down here, but on that topic, what is your thought process now as far as the likelihood that the government could interfere with Bitcoin and try to stifle it? Has that ship sailed completely?
Well, the government is already interfering and they're going to probably escalate that intervention as we go. But, to your point, the real revelation of Bitcoin is that that's all it's designed to do is survive, right? It's
Uh,
it's optimized for survival. That's all really.
Anti-fragile. Yeah.
Yeah, it's anti-fragile. So no matter what you throw at it, it actually tends to make it stronger. It's very pared down code that just optimizes for supply cap, new block every 10 minutes, survive, basically.
Hmm.
And the sort of analogy I like to use there is it's Bitcoin is money wrapped in military grade encryption designed to survive. So this multi-trillion-dollar question is, how do you stop it? Right? We know that every vested power structure in the world is arrayed against the success of Bitcoin,
Hmm.
but it's not that it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you can't stop the thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people hit that stumbling block, and I think it's because we have, in our modern secular post Nietzschean death of God age, we have pulled out GOV and deified GOV. People think government is God in many ways today.
Hmm.
They view government as some type of omnipotent organization that doesn't suffer trade-offs or incur opportunity costs, right? We can just print money and pass a law and change the world, which, as we know as Bitcoiners, is just a bunch of bullshit, frankly. So I think we've seen dominant institutions rise and we've seen them persist for some period of time. And then we typically see some technological innovation shatter their hold on the world. And then the dominant
Hmm.
institution declines, it fights futilely for its own survival. And then on the new technological landscape that disrupted the dominant institution, we build a new world, right? That's what the printing press did to the medieval church, broke the monopoly on knowledge, um, and ultimately led to the downfall of the medieval church as the dominant institution in the world, paving the way for the nation state. And I think that's what Bitcoin does to the nation state, is it just bankrupts this institution
So,
of systemic
so
theft and
Robert,
violence.
doesn't the game theory of Bitcoin also suggest that these people that would otherwise be antagonistic eventually acquiesce and come around and actually want to buy and have some Bitcoin and have really no choice but to embrace it at some point in time?
Yeah, it's a key point that often those people that get hung up on that issue in the rabbit hole thinking that, oh, the government will never allow it. they have this low resolution mental model of the world where they conceive of government as some type of indivisible economic entity. Like it's just like, what is China going to do? What is Russia going to do? Like there's some monolithic structure out there called Russia or China. Newsflash, there's not, right? There's just people vying for power, typically a lot of families fighting over power. There is someone that controls the nation, right? Controls its military capabilities and whatnot. But incentives don't operate on those monolithic structures, right? Those are just simplifications for us to think and reason about, right? We can use these useful fictions of collectives to simplify our conversation. But the actual incentives that are actually moving real people in the real world, that Bitcoin is a big part of, as you know, money being a major incentive structure, those operate on individuals, right? Individuals purposefully choosing means to satisfy ends.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is, you've got people inside of fiat currency complexes. If you're not a shareholder to the central bank, then you are a victim in that situation. If you are a shareholder to a central bank, then you are a victimizer, right? You're stealing from people through taxation and inflation. Inflation in the case of just fiat currency. Well, people don't like to be stolen from, surprise, surprise. So what we get is a buildup of this pain over time, that more and more currency inflation is used as a means of harvesting economic surplus from productive market actors into the hands of bureaucrats. And as people wake up to this reality of, hey, I can now opt out of this inflationary scam that I have so much of my economic energy tied up in, the fruits of my labor tied up in, I can now opt for uninflatable, counterfeitable money like Bitcoin. So it's that's how I think it moves over time, is there's a buildup of pain. People don't like to be stolen from. They awaken to the solution. They move their economic energy out of a system in which they're being victimized and move into a system where they have much more autonomy, sovereignty, and freedom ultimately. And that's what propels the success of Bitcoin. It's individuals waking up to the giant scam that they're embroiled in and choosing, right, purposeful pursuit of ends and choosing the means most suitable to those ends. Well, if my ends are to no longer be robbed and have my economic energy harvested, I'm going to choose the best means for that, which is Bitcoin. So,
okay,
yes.
so we've got a comment in here that I want to address, a little intervention here, and this is also something that was part of our subject matter anyway. People storing their value in other things because the fiat currency, they don't have faith in it. And Der Stifel says, "What is money? Not Bitcoin." And he says, "I wish I would have just put my money into Steel Sports Rolexes. I'm much further ahead. I was putting money into Bitcoin when it was 65,000." Okay, so let's address two things here on this. People do store their value in art, antique cars, watches. It seems like they really are desperate to find somewhere to store their value that it's not going to be eroded over time, because they haven't really had something like Bitcoin. They haven't had a you can call it a currency, call it money, call it whatever you want to call it. They haven't had something like that where they could put their money and they know that it can't be deflated.
Mm-hmm.
Is this why people have done this? Bought real estate as quote investment and all these different things where they park their money because they don't have sound money. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think this is a very simple way to look at it, is the three basic functions of money, right? Store value, mediate exchange, provide a unit of account.
Mm-hmm.
In a fiat currency regime where you've centralized and monopolized control over the currency inflation rate or the currency supply issuance, you have basically broken the first function of money. It's no longer going to store value when one group can counterfeit the money to enrich themselves, right? You don't need a crystal ball to understand what's going to happen in that situation. The equivalent question is, if I give you a money printing machine and you can just press a button and new dollars come out, is it not obvious that you're going to press that machine and spit out new dollars until it breaks? I mean, it's very obvious.
Especially if you can give it to your buddies, right?
Especially, well, yeah, it's money, right? You can do anything with it. So you'll probably build a whole nation state of your own in that situation. And that's basically why the nation state strives to monopolize money, because it's this source of virtually limitless revenue. So yes, your intuition is correct that when you monopolize money and you centralize the control over its issuance, that's equivalent to breaking the store of value functionality of money, because it's going to be printed, and it's going to be printed faster and faster. It's going to depreciate faster and faster over time until it hyperinflates. This is not only rationally what we would expect from just observing the incentive structure and human nature, but it's also empirically what we observe when you look across human history. It's what happens every fucking time we monopolize money. We debase it to the point of meaninglessness. So in that situation, people, being purposeful actors, monetize other things. They look for other things to store value in. Anything that cannot be printed or counterfeited is relatively a superior store of value to money that's being debased ad infinitum. So yes, I think the reason we have all this monetary premium in equities and commodities and real estate is because we don't have an adequate store of value mechanism in the money. But as we say, Bitcoin fixes this.
And I think we should address, some of these guys are making like, humorous comments. I bought it 68,000. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, guys. Have a long-term horizon. We don't know what the Bitcoin price is going to do short term. This is just my opinion. It goes up and down. It's very volatile. Historically, it's gone on a 4-year cycle. And when it's going parabolic and the price is going up, everybody FOMOs in. They buy Bitcoin. And then some of them stick around, but some of them have weak hands and sell it when it goes significantly lower, like some people are selling right now. But I don't think that's the way to look at this thing. I think you look at this thing as it's nascent. It has a small market cap, so it can be very volatile. As a bunch of money comes in, it can go up fast. As money leaves it for whatever reason, it can go down fast. But it has been growing year over year consistently for 14 years now. How do you see the growth of Bitcoin? Let's not even talk about the price, but how do you see the growth of the Bitcoin network, the network effect? Because the way I see it, that's what this is. If somebody's investing in Bitcoin, they're investing in the network effect of Bitcoin, the network, and whether or not it's going to continue to grow and continue to get stronger. So first, comment on, is that a good way to look at it? And B, do you think that it is continuing to grow, even though we're in a down market right now?
Well, it's definitely still growing. And there's so many ways to approach this. First of all, if you're concerned about the Bitcoin price, like if you feel emotional about it or harmed, then you're overinvested. You either have not created an adequate level of conviction, which I always recommend that people study the world, develop a worldview, and then construct a portfolio that reflects your worldview. If you don't know and understand what you own, you're going to get shaken out of your position, either to the upside or the downside. If it doubles in price, you're going to sell it and think you're a genius because you think dollars rule the world. If it declines by 50%, you're going to get shaken out of your position and sell it emotionally. You're thinking in dollars, right? We can't, well, there's this strange aspect to money. I describe money as it's like a hybrid technology and psychotechnology. So in one sense, it's tangible, right? Gold is a physical metal and we can touch it and whatnot. You could call it a technology in that sense, that it's something we handle. But the real value of gold as money is that it actually changes the way we think, the way we cognitively fit ourselves to the world. That's pricing. Well, it used to be dollars were redeemable for gold. So thinking in terms of dollars was kind of a useful mechanism for performing economic calculation. But when you break that and dollars are no longer redeemable for gold, you're now thinking in a very a way that's not going to hold a lot of weight over time. Like, for instance, the price of steak today and the price of steak 2.5 years ago, they're not even fucking comparable, right? The price of steak has gone up 50% in 2 years, 2.5 years. So if I'm trying to perform any type of economic planning over more than a 3-year horizon, well, the dollar's a really terrible way to look at it. So I don't want to dwell on this point, but just to know that prices are not universally denominated in dollars. You can denominate prices in anything you want. You can, which is another way of saying you can trade anything in a ratio of anything else. Now, if Bitcoin price volatility denominated in US dollars is bothering you, then you are overinvested. Your position is too high. Or your conviction is too low.
I'm irresponsibly long, but it still doesn't bother me. I don't care. I look at a bargain right now. I'm buying more Bitcoin, right? And so I just have the belief that the network can't be stopped, that it's going to keep growing, and that the game theory of it is more and more people are going to want to get involved in it. That's my opinion. Now, I may end up being wrong, in which case I'll lose whatever time, effort, and resources I've put into Bitcoin, right? But time is going to tell that tale. So the way I explain to people, I say, listen, once you've bought the Bitcoin and you put it in cold storage, just look at your total amount of Bitcoin that you have. Don't worry about what it's trading at the fiat price today. Look at your total and don't even remember what you paid for it. Don't care. Okay, I bought a Bitcoin 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, I have a Bitcoin. You don't even need to remember what you paid for it. The fact is you've got it. And then just keep stacking more and more if you believe that this thing is not going to be stopped. If you believe it's going to survive, and if you believe it's going to be the dominant currency, I think it's going to end up being a currency, money, whatever term you want to use, the dominant money. I think that's probably a better word to use for the globe, for this connected internet economy. If it's the money layer of the internet, then that's huge.
Yeah.
So blow holes in what I just said.
Well, no, look, you have conviction, right? You have conviction based on your own research or whatever you've done. I don't know. You consume podcasts, you read, you think, right? You're an individual. You've got critical thinking. You've clearly built a wall of conviction around this asset for you, right? And your circumstances, your age, your demographic, et cetera. And your conviction consists of, correct me where I'm wrong here, you can't stop it. No one knows how to turn it off. People will keep printing money as they always have, right? Anyone who has the power to print money always engages in the printing of money. It's just a very efficient way to steal. And then the third one is that people are self-interested, right? The people that are being stolen from.
Key. Well, that's the key. That's the game theory. That's the game theory, right?
The people that are printing money will continue to want to steal. So if you just have those three things suspended into your worldview, that alone, in my mind, is adequate conviction to hold the asset. But those 3 points are packed with this is not something I can just tell you once and you've got it, right? You can't stop it. Right. How many hours did you study Bitcoin before you realized it couldn't be stopped?
A lot.
It took me a lot, and it's probably into the hundreds. I don't know.
Yeah,
people will keep printing as a little bit easier. I mean, that's just kind of like getting through some monetary history and studying incentives and game theory. Like, of course, people are going to steal if it's profitable. People do whatever is profitable is another way to say that. And then people being self-interested is almost axiomatic about human nature.
So, Robert, on the printing thing, my take on that is we've never really had a global monetary system because, first of all, we didn't have the internet. Okay. And so I think this is the first time we've had a global monetary system where I can send something of value at a speed of light from me to you and nobody can mess with it. It's between you and I. We can self-custody. This is not something that has ever been available to humankind, ever. Yeah. And so to me, that also added to the fact that it can't be stopped is like this thing, these people that say, this is what really bugs me. They say that this thing doesn't have any utility. It doesn't do anything, right?
Mhm.
Uh, What? I can self custody something of real value and send it from me to you, and nobody can stop that. That's not utility. I mean, I don't get why they don't see the value in just that.
Mhm.
Is there something I'm missing, Robert?
Well, no, so I guess I would have a slight caveat, in that I actually think gold was the original open source monetary system, right? No one knew how to change the rules of gold effectively, right? And it's open source in the sense that anybody can inspect gold and, test it chemically and, try to modify it or change it. But all of those efforts basically promoted gold as this incorruptible monetary standard, right? We couldn't print it, we couldn't counterfeit it, we couldn't easily. Well, really, that's it. You can't print it and you can't counterfeit it, more or less. There's some other factors there as far as like its
But
acceptance.
there's a lot of fake gold out there, and it's not that easy to
Right.
confirm that
You
gold is
have to
real. Not like
assay the
Bitcoin.
value. Yes, you have to assay the value, or you have to depend on the reputation of a coin issuer, things like this. So it's limited. So my point is this:
Yeah.
that gold is an open source monetary system, analog, not digital.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
globally transactable at the speed of light. Obviously, the physicality of gold
Yeah.
is really the source of all of its downfalls. Right? It
Mhm.
approximates these economic properties that we really need in money, which I talk about a lot. Divisibility, durability, recognizability, portability, scarcity. These are the things you want in a good money. But gold is very inhibited in terms of portability. Doesn't move across space very well. So what did we do? We introduce an application on top of gold called currency, right? You put all the gold in one warehouse and the warehouse issues receipts, which later the warehouse becomes a bank and a central bank. So these become banknotes. And then these paper tokens are now redeemable for gold. So you've augmented the portability of gold into a system that's globally transactable. So there was a need really to go to a gold-backed currency, and gold-backed currency would work wonderful if we weren't sinful, conniving animals, that you could trust.
Trust math, not humans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can't trust human nature. You can't trust the centralization of that much power into the hands of that few people. That is a recipe for corruption. And so the utility of Bitcoin, I mean, anyone that says Bitcoin doesn't have utility doesn't understand anything about money. I mean,
Yeah.
is it adhering to a supply cap of 21 million? Yes. Has it had an expansion or at least a maintenance of purchasing power year over year? Well, yeah, it's been expanding radically. Can it be custodied in a multi-sig solution that, to the extent that no one on earth can steal it from me, even if you put a gun to my head? Yes. Can't do that with any other asset in the world. And now with the Lightning Network, you get this global instant final settlement thing where it very much is like teleporting a bar of gold anywhere in the world. There's never been a technology like this. So if you want to argue about in terms of utility,
I know. It's just I can't. My head explodes when I
the
hear people
utility of
say that.
money and this is why I always talk about the properties. That is the utility of money. How divisible is your tool? How durable? How recognizable? How portable? How scarce? Well, Bitcoin has perfected all of them, right? It's infinitely divisible. It does not break down over time. It can move. You can move it at the speed of light. You can audit it by running a full node, and it's perfectly scarce at 21 million. So there you
One
go.
of my viewers, Carlos, he says game theory is about the interactions of rational actors. You can use it to speak about anything, including Bitcoin. Different rational actors may have different opinions about BTC. He's been one of the naysayers. I haven't been able to orange pill Carlos. He's been watching the show for a long time. Even when I bought Bitcoin at $4,000 live on the show, he didn't want to buy Bitcoin back when it was $4,000. And I'm not rubbing that in, Carlos. But anyway,
Look,
he seems to I guess I guess he doesn't think that. Well, I don't understand. I mean, the game theory that I'm talking about is if somebody finds out that Joe Schmo, his buddy, has bought Bitcoin and is doing real well with it, at some point he's going to look at it and he's going to say, well, I'm being left behind or whatever. And that's just one aspect of it. But that this thing has a 14-year track record of that sort of thing happening. So why do we believe that it's going to stop happening now?
Yeah, so I would say this. Okay, to your friend that commented about rational actors having different perspectives on Bitcoin. Yeah, of course that's the case.
Sure.
But I'll quote Ayn Rand here, who says that you're free to ignore reality, but you are not free to ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. So you can form whatever opinion you want about gravity, for instance, right? You say, I don't believe in gravity.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, go express that thesis and jump off a cliff and you're going to be dead. And you can't ignore death, right? Death is pretty absolute in that respect. So what is game theory all about? Game theory is about loss minimization and becoming unexploitable. So if you're holding a currency that someone else can arbitrarily expand, they just literally, the Federal Reserve maintains an SQL database on premise that they call the US dollar. It's just a database. It's a central database inside of an institution. It is not possible for you to save in the US dollar and enjoy loss minimization. There is not a game theoretic optimal in the game of money by holding fiat currency. You are willing or unwillingly a victim to the scam of fiat currency. And you'll either be naturally selected out of existence or you'll wake up and move your wealth into a less exploitable medium. And so, and the second component of game theory is to become unexploitable. Inflation is just an exploit, right? That's all it is someone can, how about I sell you 1,000 shares of Robert stock, and I know I can keep issuing this shit coin ad infinitum and you'll keep buying it. Does that sound like you're getting exploited in that arrangement where I can just produce as much as I want of this asset with no cost, and you give me stuff of value, products, services, money that came at heavy cost to you? Does that arrangement sound like you're unexploitable? I mean,
that sounds like what's happening to a lot of people.
that's it. That's it. And that's why I say this. If you don't understand the game of money, if you don't understand the games being played in money, then you are the game being played. If you're a holder, and this is not, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it is what it is, guys. Show me in history where people holding an inferior money did not suffer a bad outcome.
Yeah, and what's that term where the stronger money usually wins out?
Gresham's law.
Yeah, and
good money drives bad money drives good money out of circulation because people hoard the good money and spend the bad money.
So I don't. So we're using a lot of your time. Let me go through this list real quick and make sure we've got all these bullet points taken care of. Proof of work. I think that's a really important part. We've already talked about the hard cap of 21 million units. And there's a certain number of units that are issued every 10 minutes. What's it, like 6.5 or something now?
Yeah, 6.25.
Every 6.25 every 10 minutes. And then we'll talk about the halving also, but I might as well mention the halving, that basically that issuance rate is cut in half roughly every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the dwindling supply until it finally gets down to the 21 million units, like 100 years from now or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the issuance of the Bitcoin, and that's the hard cap. The proof of work and the difficulty adjustment, those two things were two really big deals as far as the gentleman or lady or group of people that invented Bitcoin, who we don't know who that is. Those were two key elements that solved this problem of being able to have something that's scarce on the internet, a digitally scarce item. So can you explain proof of work and difficulty adjustment and how those play into this whole thing?
Yeah, sure. I'll draw on the analog analogy of gold again, because in many ways I view Bitcoin as the synthesis of the economic properties enshrined in gold and the nearly limitless possibilities of exchange that the internet gives us. That we have this global engine for moving moving information worldwide in an instant with no permission. Bitcoin's kind of like the combination of these two things, gold and internet. And so when it comes to gold, one of the properties of money, right? Monetary metals were the most divisible, durable, recognizable, portable thing we had. Of the monetary metals, gold was the most scarce. And what I mean by that is that gold had the least flexible supply. Because the funny thing about money, and you have to understand scarcity first, is that scarcity occurs wherever demand exceeds supply. So whenever there's more desire for something than there is capacity to satisfy our desire for the thing, we have to develop a way of resolving that inherent conflict. And you can do that by contract or conflict. You can actually fight it out. And the pricing system is the non-violent way of resolving disputes over scarce resources. The thing about money, though, is that it's always scarce, so long as it's money, because money can be exchanged for any good or service. And the wants or desires people have are effectively limitless. So what we look at there is that when we say this most scarce money wins, is implying that all money is effectively scarce. What you're saying is the money with the least flexible supply wins. And that is another way of saying, what is the best store of value? If I park my economic energy in the thing, at what level of guarantee do I have that it will not be debased? Or if it's going to be debased, it's only going to be debased at 2% year over year, as was the case with gold historically. So what constrained the supply of gold from overissuance? Well, it was proof of work, right? There is an energy expenditure necessary to go out into the world, to discover gold deposits, to mine them, to refine them, to mint them into coins, perhaps. These are all expenditures necessary to secure the economic value ascribed to gold through the market process. So there's a balance of incentives and disincentives. Then, like, I will only mine gold up until the point where its per unit production cost is exactly 1 cent less than its market value, right? Because if it goes above, then I'm mining at a loss and it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So proof of work is that fundamental balance. And now this is also, I would argue, just the law of nature in a way that, you see peacocks, the male peacock displays their feathers to the female. What they're signaling there is proof of work. My genetics are so superior that I've been able to go out and feed myself and grow into a big, healthy adult male. And I even had wealth left over to build these big, beautiful fucking feathers that make you want to make little baby peacocks with me. It's the same thing. It's proof of work. So that's the problem with fiat currency, by the way, is we've removed the proof of work, right? The cost of producing a new unit of fiat currency is effectively zero. So if I can produce a unit at zero and sell it on the market at face value, then I can steal from people. And that's what fiat currency is based on.
Because you have to do the work.
Exactly.
And you're getting something. You're getting something from them where they did have to do the work.
You get something for nothing.
Yeah.
And you know this, if you've been alive for more than 2 seconds, you know this doesn't work. Right? In thermodynamic reality, there is no free lunch. You don't get something for nothing in the real world in a way that persists, let's say. That any system that's yielding you something for nothing is bound to self-destruct. And that's the case of fiat currency. So you asked about the difficulty adjustment.
Yeah, the difficulty adjustment is next. Yeah.
So difficulty adjustment is, it's something that occurs, again, somewhat naturally. If you go into a free market and you're selling widgets and you've got the best, fastest, cheapest widgets in the world and you're just dominating the market space, everyone wants to buy widgets from you. Well, maybe you're doing really well, you've got a healthy profit margin, et cetera. But what does that do when you're successful at selling widgets? It's actually signaling to other potential competitors into the marketplace, hey, this guy's having a lot of success selling widgets. Why don't I come in, sell some widgets as well, but maybe I'll sell them just a little bit cheaper than him so I can take market share, right? And that process repeats. You get more entrants, and it's actually, this is the competition that drives honest pricing, right? It's competition among producers that's actually keeping them honest in terms of pricing. The opposite of that situation would be a monopoly, right? Where I've pointed a gun at all my potentially competitive producers and said, if you try to sell any of this stuff, I'm going to fucking kill you. And I'm going to keep my price where it is. So that the monopoly lets the producer defraud the customer, whereas competition keeps producers acting in service of consumers. So that's the difficulty adjustment in capitalism, right? You have some success selling a thing, more competition comes online, encouraging you to lower the price. You have to adapt, right? You're constantly adapting. And with Bitcoin, the more we try to mine it, the more we pursue production of it, Bitcoin has this is genius, really. It makes it almost like a living thing, because now Bitcoin is adapting to how we try to mine it. To what extent do we try to mine Bitcoin? How much hashing power are we bringing online? Well, every 2 weeks, Bitcoin engages in this algorithmic process called the difficulty adjustment, where it makes the puzzle, the mathematical puzzle of mining, harder based on how much more new hash rate has come online.
Yeah.
And it adjusts perfectly such that it adheres to its perfectly fixed and diminishing supply curve, which we know, X number of Bitcoin, as we said, 6.25 Bitcoin produced on an average of every 10 minutes. In this halving epoch, it gets cut in half. Starting May 2024, we get down to 3 1/8. I think that's right. 3 1/8 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. And it reduces by 50% every 4 years thereafter. And it's constantly
keeps the 10 minutes. That keeps the 10 minutes in sync. So
That's
like
right.
if there's too much
That's
hash
right.
rate, it would the blocks would be sooner.
Discovered
And
more
they
quickly.
don't want that.
Right. And then every 2 weeks it adjusts to accommodate the additional hash rate such that it sticks to the 10-minute block time, or the targeted 10-minute block time. So the difficulty adjustment really is kind of the magic sauce that makes this thing work, because like no matter how hard we are trying, my daughter said this actually, she goes, she wasn't talking about Bitcoin difficulty adjustment, but she asked me one time, Dad, can we touch the sunset? And I thought, wow, that's a brilliant fucking analogy for what the difficulty adjustment is doing. Because it's like the closer you try to get to grabbing that thing, the more Bitcoin difficulty adjustment is like a receding horizon. It's like you can never catch it. It just always adapts to your efforts. And then that is what's bootstrapping the whole network. You get more and more miners investing capital and energy trying to produce the thing, but no one can increase production of the thing. And this is unlike any other commodity in the world, right? If we did this in
That's
gold,
right.
we would increase gold production, and this would
marginalize
its capacity to store value. So the difficulty adjustment is super fascinating, and if anything, I think it makes Bitcoin seem like a living money of some kind.
I mean, even land, right? I mean, there's a proposal right now to significantly extend Manhattan Island. They've already done it. About a third of it, or maybe 30% or so of that is man-made as it stands. And they're thinking about extending it out significantly further because it's so valuable, and because also they think they need to do this because of climate change or whatever. But anyway, they say it would be worth doing just because that land would be so valuable. Obviously, it would be part of Manhattan, right? And so, and there are places all around the world where they've done this, where they've extended land. If it's real valuable, they just make more of it. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can't even do that.
Right.
So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Okay, so the term crypto, everybody, all the Bitcoin maxis, I guess the Bitcoin toxic maxis is the highest level of toxicity. They don't want anybody to use the term crypto, and I don't use crypto. I specifically say Bitcoin because I want people to buy Bitcoin. I think it's the way to go. But that's just because I have no interest in all these other quote projects. I'm too old to try to figure out what's going on with all that junk. So, but for some reason, everybody now, I guess the term crypto has been taken over by the hucksters and the scammers and all that. And so I guess Bitcoiners are trying to separate that out and say it's Bitcoin and then it's crypto. It seems like to me that that we shouldn't have given them that word, right? We should take both. We should say it's crypto and Bitcoin. Crypto is Bitcoin and only Bitcoin, and then all the rest of it are scams or whatever. But I guess we've given up that name. I guess we're not supposed to use the name crypto anymore. What do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, look, I mean, we don't really get to choose how these cultural patterns unfold necessarily. But as it stands today, crypto, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, these are all bullshit words. These don't mean anything. These are
Yeah.
you're
Because
referring to all the copy and paste versions of Bitcoin that are either trying to compete with it directly as money or trying to resolve some other market niche. But
ride the
ultimately,
coattails of Bitcoin, basically.
yeah, but they don't. There's no there's no unresolved product market fit that any of them stand to solve that holds a candle to the market for money, right? The market for money is the
Yeah.
biggest, most important market in the world, hands down, not even fucking close to anything else. That's why it's monopolized in every country in the world, right? It's an instrument of liquid power. So disrupting that, separating money from state, is the $100 trillion opportunity on the lowest end, right? It's probably a $400 trillion opportunity, maybe more. We don't know how much wealth creation will be unlocked by the separation of money and state. And if all of that purchasing power accretes to Bitcoin, then who knows how many tens or hundreds of
Yeah,
trillions this could be.
because, and I think about this a lot, in the current system, you've got a lot of people that are just leeches on the system
Yes.
that aren't producing anything of value. They're not cobbling shoes. They're
Non-productive
not,
political actors.
yeah, they're not farming. They're not, working in a factory, building something. They're not a plumber. They're a lawyer. They're an insurance guy. They're a finance guy. They're all these people, right, that aren't really producing anything. Don't get me started on insurance. Geez, it's been more than 20 years ago. I told my insurance agent on my house down in Florida, I said, no, thanks. I'm not paying. He wanted to double the rates from $1,600 a year to $3,200 a year. I said, no. He said, so you got to take it. Your mortgage company's going to require. I said, well, thank God I don't have a mortgage. And so I haven't had insurance on that house for more than 20 years. And it's a scam. All these things, and they're regulated, and you have to get insurance on your car. I can't post a $300,000 bond and say I'm going to self-insure because I'm a careful driver, right? I can't do that. I've got to pay a ton of money to the insurance company every freaking year, even though I don't have accidents. It's all a scam. And anyway, let's not get down that whole rabbit hole. But I think that Bitcoin can fix all of these things. I think it can take all these leeches that are non-productive out of the system, especially the ones that are empowered by government to charge extra money. I don't have anything against insurance companies if they were in a real competitive environment, right? And they weren't being told, and we weren't being told by the government that we absolutely have to buy this thing. And then, of course, they can charge whatever they want. So I think Bitcoin's going to short circuit a lot of that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is economic rationality that stealing is anti-productive. So to the extent that you cannot keep 100% of the fruits of your labor, you are disincentivized from producing, right? So if I know my effective tax rate is 20%, that means I'm only keeping 80% of the value I create. The other 20% is being siphoned off by a tax authority. Well, then I have a 20% less of an incentive to engage in long-term investment in productive activities, right? I'm actually incentivized to consume more. And so all we're talking about with Bitcoin is a technology that makes theft much more expensive, risky, dangerous, perhaps even impossible, at least when it comes to stealing Bitcoin in particular, right? If you're custodying your Bitcoin properly, then it can't even be stolen from you. So the degree, if theft is anti-productive, then the degree to which we can make theft more expensive is the degree to which we can increase our productivity. And more productivity means a richer and more prosperous world, higher standards of living, Less hours need be worked per week to make ends meet. All of these things, I think, are follow-on or knock-on effects from the monetization of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and if we talk about you can self-custody, right? And we talked earlier about utility. Just the fact that every human being that has a cell phone, and I think Obama made this comment, they're all going to have a Swiss bank account in their pocket, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
just that. And that was back when Swiss bank accounts were really private and the government couldn't take it and so on and so forth. And that ship has sailed. But anyway, this is a real Swiss bank account that you can have. You can actually custody something of value and nobody can take it away from you. And also, nobody needs to even know that you have it in the first place
Yeah.
if you do it right. And so that right there is tremendous utility for billions of people that have had things taken from them. It happens all the time. I mean, you get in a nasty divorce or whatever, and they want to take all your money. They want to do all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of situations where people might want to have some money off to the side somewhere that nobody can touch. That's tremendous utility.
Of course, that's probably the most important thing in the world when it comes to economic livelihood, is to have some nest egg or asset that is untouchable, right? That therefore, no matter what happens, you have access to the thing and no one can take it from you. So again, all these things we're describing, like inflation is theft, taxation is theft, regulation is theft. All we're saying is, like, you get access or recourse to a tool that lets you say fuck you to all that. You can just you can opt out, right? You don't have to be stolen from anymore. Your sovereignty is increased, your optionality is increased, your freedom is increased just by virtue of holding this untouchable asset. And so that's it. I mean, you can argue and you can have your bearish views on Bitcoin, your bullish views on Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, there's only one asset that can be held with no counterparty risk. There's only one.
Yeah.
There's only one in the world. Yeah. And guess what?
That
Human
has any
existence is
significant
counterparty risk.
Yeah, that has any significant network and real value. I mean,
no. The only one, period. Ethereum is not, you can't self-custody Ethereum and not have counterparty risk. Why? Because you still have the counterparty risk of the Ethereum Foundation and Vitalik and all of these guys that can roll back the chain and fork it. And, you know, just study the DAO hack on Ethereum back in 2016 is what I'm referring to here. There's only one asset in the world that you can hold, one digital asset with zero counterparty risk.
Well, I mean, I can hold a gold coin, right?
That's what I said, digital asset. So you can hold physical gold.
Yeah.
You can hold physical bearer assets.
Yeah, this was the breakthrough of Bitcoin, is to figure out a way to do it digitally on the internet.
Yes.
That was the whole technology. That was the whole thing that he did. And then the way that he did it, and the way that it flew under the radar for quite a while, and then it finally started getting a lot of traction. That's why I think it can't be stopped at this point. I think it's too spread out. I think people with money and influence are starting to buy it and own it. That's that game theory we were talking about.
Yeah.
And so, and all these other crap coins out there, they just have nothing going for them, as far as I can tell. And Ethereum is just a train wreck. So there is no competitor, and nobody could launch something like this now, because first of all, why would somebody want to? Okay, if somebody's going to try to launch something like this, they're going to want control over it, which is the opposite of Bitcoin, right? Nobody has control over it.
Right.
So there would be no motivation for somebody to spend the money and resources to create something that's truly open source and truly decentralized and so on and so forth, because they wouldn't control it. Even if they could, there'd be no incentive for them to even try to even do that. So it's
and they
Bitcoin,
can't, even if they wanted to, you can't recreate decentralization. Doesn't exist. Like the idiosyncratic sequence of events that led to the emergence of Bitcoin is what makes it decentralized. It's not like someone created this in a lab and said, all right, Bitcoin's decentralized now, push it out to the market. No, there's a path dependent historical development that already happened. It's already played out, and you can't replicate that. It's not possible.
So Brett says, what about the Bitcoin Foundation? What is the Bitcoin Foundation? I've never heard of that.
No idea.
I've got a Bitcoin Foundation. Just send the donations. The address is on my website. Send the Bitcoin to there, and I'll take care of it.
You can have as many Bitcoin found. I guess the tongue-in-cheek question is, he's asking, is there a Bitcoin Foundation that can change the consensus rules? And that's not the case. You can have as many Bitcoin foundations as you want. Satoshi himself could come back with 1 million Bitcoin in self-custody, and he could not change the consensus rules of Bitcoin. That's not true for any other crypto asset project.
Yeah.
Only Bitcoin is decentralized. Everything else is centralized.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Most of the people that subscribe and interact with my channel, they're not Bitcoiners. There are some that over the years I've persuaded to get involved in Bitcoin, but the vast majority are not. So hopefully some of them are going to learn something from this. And you're certainly going to learn something if you go to whatismoneypodcast.com. And let me show here's his Twitter. Let me just make this full screen so you guys can see his Twitter. Solo layout. Here we go. And that's where you follow Robert on Twitter. And then let me show you his, let's see. That's his website, where I guess you'll find all the podcasts. And then that is his YouTube channel. So, and I've got all the links down below in the description. So you're definitely going to want to check those out. And let me bring you back up. How do I do this? I'm confused a little bit. Okay. There we go. So any closing thoughts? You've been with us almost an hour, and it's been what we would call pure signal. I think we've touched on almost everything, but is there anything really important that we've missed?
No, I would just, it's very easy. What do I observe here? I observe a lot of rich Americans being extra resistant to this idea of Bitcoin. And I think there's something about when you succeed under a existing paradigm, like maybe you've succeeded in the fiat currency complex, you've become rich. There's this tendency to want to make that part of your personality in a way, like the idea that the US dollar somehow gives us American exceptionalism, and to threaten the US dollar is really bad for Americans. And I just don't buy it at all, right? There's a deeper narrative here, and it's below nationalism and patriotism and all these like hallucinations that people operate under. It's about freedom ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's, the same trope that every social revolution has embraced, right? Power to the people. That's all we're talking about here. Like, there's just a tool now, it's called Bitcoin, and it affords individuals unparalleled power in the face of anything, right? In the face of tyranny, in the face of disinformation, inflation, regulation, taxation, confiscation. It gives the individual more options to deal with these threats than ever before. So it's like, it's one of the purest expressions of power to the people. So you might be skeptical. You might think you've got it all figured out. You might have heard someone on mainstream media saying Bitcoin boils the oceans and it's only used by drug dealers and terrorists. But maybe just stop for a second and ask yourself, why? If it's such a useless tool, why are we hearing about central bank digital currencies? Why are we hearing about all this nonstop media demonization of Bitcoin, demonization of money that can't be controlled by the state, et cetera, right? Ask yourself why. That's all I'm trying to hopefully encourage people to do, because once you do that, you'll peel back the layers and look beneath the surface.
We, as a people in the United States of America, have had an unfair advantage ever since World War II. First of all, we wiped out all of our competition. We bombed all their factories into rubble, right? And so then we had the rise of the petrodollar and all that, and everybody around the world has to use dollars and so forth. So we've had a tremendous benefit from all of this. There's no doubt in my mind that that's true. But I think we would benefit even more if the money system was fixed and if everybody around the world became more productive. Productivity leads to abundance
Yes.
and leads to higher quality products. And if people are being careful about what they spend their Bitcoin on, they're going to buy quality items and maybe not as many items, but I think it's going to benefit everybody. So, but we're each preaching to the choir here. Hopefully people that have watched this have gotten something out of it. Definitely check out Robert Breedlove, whatismoneypodcast.com. And thank you so much for coming on. I know you're a very, very, very busy man. And by the way, Briefit Dance is down in the chat. She says hello. She did a song about you. So she was really impressed with your podcast as well. So thanks again for everything you do and all the time and effort that you put into this really freedom movement.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Always happy to talk about this. Thank you, Bree, for doing the show. And yeah, it's exciting. So if it's one thing Bitcoin is not, it's not ever not exciting. So it's a fun place to be.
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and chat a little bit with these people that are still hanging in here. You're welcome to go because I'm sure you've got things to do. But thanks again for coming in. And everybody, do check out his podcast. Be sure to subscribe to it with whatever your favorite podcast app is. You will get a lot out of it. Thanks again,
so
Robert.
much. Bye.
So, folks, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? That's a lot of signal brought to the channel, a lot of Bitcoin signal. I think Robert's on to something. I think he makes a lot of sense. I'm going to keep buying some Bitcoin. And if anybody else wants to come in, I'm going to put a link in the chat. If anybody wants to pop in, I'm only going to be here for a couple more minutes, but I'm going to put it in here just in case anybody wants to pop in and say hello. It's been a while since we did a show. So there you go. There's the link if anybody wants to pop in and say hello. Maybe Briefit Dance will pop in. Maybe Kyle can give us a report from the West Coast. I'm going to play a little I'm going to play a video clip. Let's play Max Kaiser here real quick. Let's try this.
Except you've got a boner for gold in a reason that doesn't make any sense. Well, because they're compatible. No. We should be on the same page. No, your customers want crypto. You're saying no. It's my ideology prevents you from.
Max Kaiser going off on Peter Schiff. And back in 2015, this was some advice.
So you can go to a site called Coinbase and just buy Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, right now, one Bitcoin costs $250, let's say. But you can get much less than a Bitcoin, 0.01 Bitcoin. You can spend $5 worth of Bitcoin. Get some Bitcoin. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, I don't have any money. You do have money. And Americans do not save enough. Americans don't plan enough. This is a little investment you can make that the average Joe can make. This is not the complexity of investing in a.
That was Adam Meister back in 2015 saying to buy Bitcoin for $250. So there you go. I can probably pop in for a minute, says the lovely Briefit Dance. Okay. And Carlos says, nice hipster vest. This is a hipster vest. This is an old one. It's all silk. It's all silk. I think it is where'd it come from? I don't remember now. I don't remember. But it was made in the USA. I will say that. It's just added a little bit of warmth. It wasn't cool enough in here for me to actually wear a suit coat or something. And since I knew Robert Breedlove would be dressed casually, I figured I'd go with the open collar. And I've also been watching the latest. Have you guys seen The Blacklist on Netflix? I've been watching the recent series, and the main character in there, he's been wearing like high-end white shirts unbuttoned like this, with the top button unbuttoned, and with a vest. So I figured I would channel him on today's broadcast. And of course, I've got the Bitcoin cufflinks. So yeah, that's a great show. I like that show. I've seen all the seasons. It's season 9 now. Have you guys seen The Blacklist? Have you guys seen that? Let me know. Trying to think what else. Yeah, and as far as the Bitcoin price goes, I mean, I don't see any evidence that this isn't just a normal 4-year cycle. We're right where we normally are on the 4-year cycle as far as the amount of a pullback there's been. Now, the reason I didn't tell you guys not to buy at the higher numbers is there's no guarantee that these 4-year cycles are going to continue forever. Like, for example, this time we're having a 4-year cycle, and we'll probably have a pump after the next halving in 2024, and the price will probably go up to 100 grand or whatever. But after that, maybe we won't have another big pullback after that. Maybe people will finally start waking up, and a lot of the big money will be coming in and so forth, and the market cap will get significantly higher. And so we won't have a 75% retracement. So the problem with people that count on that is, let's say, for example, you bought Bitcoin now, and then Bitcoin goes to 100,000. And you think, okay, I'm going to sell all my Bitcoin at 100,000. And then I'm going to wait for a 75% pullback and buy it back. Let's say you only have a 25% pullback and you don't buy because you think it's going to go significantly lower, and you hold off. And then it starts running back up again, and then it goes over 100,000. Now, all of a sudden, you got to buy back at a higher price, right? So that's where you're gambling. If you're planning on that pullback being a certain amount, and then you don't get that pullback, you're kind of screwed at that point. And so that's why I don't try to do it. I don't try to time it and sell near the top and then buy back later near the bottom. I just buy and hold. Now, I will admit that the most I paid was in the 40s, like 40,000 something or whatever. I don't think I paid 50 or 60,000. I don't think I bought it at those high numbers. I may have bought a little bit at those numbers, but I'm buying heavily right now. Right now at these numbers, I'm buying irresponsibly heavily. So that's the reason why I don't think it's a good idea to try to time those cycles, because we don't know when the last cycle will occur. At some point, there aren't going to be cycles. So that's the danger is we don't know when that might be the case. Brief it dance in the house. I'm going to make you a full screen solo layout.
Oh,
there
cool.
You go. So
thank you.
What were your impressions? Oh, let me see if I can put these AirPods in. Let's see if this works. I don't know if this will work or not. Hello? Are you there?
Yes.
I can hear you. Okay. So Bree, what was your impression? What did you think about Robert Breedlove?
I think he's right on everything. I think I like the part where he said that there's nothing else that can be decentralized, only Bitcoin, and
Yep.
that's what it was created for. And so
because the decentralization is what makes it anti-fragile, which makes it where they can't be shut down. The government can't.
And also how scarce it is. So,
yeah. And that is interesting, because that's something that a lot of people, I don't think they've wrapped their head around, how few units, 21 million units are, when we're talking about something that is worldwide, that the addressable market is literally 6 billion people, because there's like 6 billion people that have phones. There's 8 billion people, right? But a couple billion of those don't even have phones. So the addressable market is like 6 billion people. I mean, that's a ton of people. So even if they just buy a little bit, right? I mean, that is like, that 21 million units is not very many units. Brent is in the house. Awesome guest, Craig. Are you talking about Briefit Dance or her Robert
Probably
Breedlove?
Robert Breedlove.
I think he's talking about you.
Thank you.
So what have you been up to lately? Anything special?
Actually, I've been doing some live shows with my dad regarding
Okay.
the World Cup. So
Okay,
I've got
good.
some
Good.
stuff in the background like that.
Cool. Yeah, I saw those things you had. You had a photo and stuff.
And also Ecuador won like
Okay.
unexpectedly. 2-0
Good.
with Qatar. So that was pretty big.
So how many games have they played? Ecuador? Just one?
Ecuador, I don't want to be wrong about it. Maybe like 4.
Oh,
Not
so they've already. So how many have they won out of 4?
They haven't.
They just won the one. Just
Yeah,
one?
I think so.
Okay. But that's still good. Oh, what do you think of this? Brett says, what do you think of this GBTC FUD, Craig? I bought some more GBTC. It's a good buy right now. They've been trying to wreck it. A lot of people have been fudding it, and I think it's who's that woman that runs the famous woman that runs the investment funds, ARK, those ARK investment funds. I forget her name now. Anyway, they just bought a whole bunch more GBTC. So obviously they think it's going to recover and the price is going to go up. And I think it will. I think the price will go up when Bitcoin goes up, which is what it always does. And yeah, ARK and yeah, Woods, that's her name. And so, yeah. And so that's the thing. I mean, you buy low and you sell high. A lot of people are panicking right now and they're selling now. I don't understand.
I'm
not
keeping
the way.
hand. I mean,
It's not the way to do it. And you own a lot of GBTC, but you're not worried about it, right? You think it'll recover. I own a lot of GBTC.
I believe so.
Yeah, I own a lot of it, and I'm buying more. So
yeah, a lot of people are asking, what if it goes down to like 7,000 or something? I'm like I'll be
Bitcoin.
okay.
I'll buy a couple more.
Yeah, that's what I say.
At that price, I'll buy a couple more. I keep my emergency fund at like maybe a year's worth of emergency fund. And I shaved that down to maybe 8 months. I took some out and bought a full Bitcoin the other day. So I'm paring down my emergency fund a little bit. I don't really need to have more than 6 months anyway. Right. And so, yeah, I'm taking some emergency cash and buying these dips. If we get another dip down to like 10,000, I'll probably buy a couple more Bitcoin. So let's see. Jason says he just bought more Bitcoin. But Jason, it doesn't matter if you've already sold the majority of your Bitcoin the other day. You said you sold most of it. So it doesn't matter if you bought a little bit more back. You better buy it all back. You better get it all.
God, he sold Bitcoin?
He sold most of his Bitcoin the other day.
Holy crap. Is he like panicked? He's probably panicked.
No, he thinks it's going to go lower and he's going to be able to buy back more.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to game the market.
It's been low, but
he thinks it's going to go. I think he thinks it's going to go down to 10,000. I think that's his number is 10,000.
It might, but
so I don't know.
It's really risky.
I don't know if he's going to get that number. I just hope he doesn't end up not being able to get his Bitcoin back.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get it back, Jason says the idea of an emergency fund of USD is counterintuitive. All you need is BTC. The problem is that when you sell BTC, you got to worry about the capital gains and all that, and so. Yeah, that's an issue. And I always like to keep some emergency money just in case an emergency happens, right? I mean, I've always done that. I'm not panicked. I want to buy more coins. 3,500. He thinks he's going to buy at 3,500 Bitcoin.
My God.
I think that was a couple years ago, Jason. I don't think you're going to get that priced in 2022.
That was like pandemic times.
Yeah, that's right. When the pandemic started, you could have bought it at that price. You need a time machine. Why not just buy more, Brett? Yeah, that's what I'm doing, and not sell. That's what I'm doing, And Brent's laughing out loud.
That's the way
Time
it
to
is.
sell was 8 months ago, says Brett. Yeah, that's what I don't understand is why they don't sell when it's up high. Why would they sell now? But
Yeah.
anyway, I can't figure what people are going to do. All right, so Bree, I'm going to let you go because I know you've got things to do. Have you been working out? You getting your exercises in?
I am. I am going to the gym, doing some home workouts.
Let me see
Also
if
dancing, belly dancing.
let me see if I have a banner for you. Find Brianna's links at, oh, there's one, but that's got Kent's link too. Bitcoin is a new gold, briefitdance.com. Would you like that one? How
Yeah.
about for business inquiries? Email me at business@briefitdance.
Yes.
All right, let me put that one on. There's her email.
I'll dance for
Okay.
Bitcoin.
And where's the I'll dance for Bitcoin one? I got to find that. There's a Bull one. Bitcoin is the new gold. Let's put that one on real quick. And let's see. Brianna Live, briefitdance.com. Find all my social media links at. Okay, I'll put that one on. There we go. That's a good one. Okay, let's go back to the comments real quick, and then we're going to wrap this one up. Let's see. I missed some of the show. Did you play video number 15 for Robert Breedlove Live? Video number 15. What's that?
Oh, Bitcoin VIP number 15.
Oh, no, we didn't. But he knows. He thanked you
Yeah,
for doing it. Did you hear him?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was nice.
Yeah. I suggest we schedule a weekly show, much to talk about these days. Kyle, you're supposed to be the show producer, and you're supposed to schedule the show and line up the guests, and then we do it. And we've had a problem with the 10 o'clock time slot. Nobody wants to do that. And I've got to call into Steve. He hasn't called me back about any other time slot. He couldn't, obviously never came to the 5 o'clock show very often. So that might not be good. So I don't know what time slot we're going to do. And I don't know who's going to come. But yeah, if you can line up a guest, even if it's just you guys reporting in from the West Coast, that'll work. But yeah, we got to have guests. It makes it more interesting if we have guests. Jason's in the house. He could report from Virginia. That's a great one. Some of your best work, Bree. There you go. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought Rich was producing. Yeah, Rich was supposed to get back to me, and that was weeks ago. And I haven't heard anything from him. So those guys have totally dropped the ball. So Kyle, I think if it's going to happen, it's got to be you. You got to be the producer. 5 p.m. is always good for me. I can't call now though because I'm at work. Okay, so then if 5 o'clock, if you're always at work at 5 o'clock, then it'll never work for you. Is there like a day you have off that we can do it, like Wednesdays or something or whatever? Like, is there a day we can do 5 o'clock where you're not working? And maybe we'll pick that day. I'd like to pick a day that's good for, most people. Yeah. And we have traditionally done 5 o'clock, so we can do 5 o'clock. I don't have a problem with that. So all right, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Bree's got the kitty cat. Let's see. 9 p.m. is a great time that works for West and East Coast. The reason that we didn't go with 9 p.m., Jason, is Archie Luxury is supposedly streaming then, and he doesn't wrap until like 9:30. So why don't you and Kyle talk, and we can figure out what's the best thing to do. Craig, it's almost time for me to sell my last 2 Rolexes for BTC. I agree, because the Rolex market is getting soft. And so if you can get buyers right now, you should do it because Bitcoin is cheap. So if you can get out of those watches at a decent price and get BTC, yeah, Brett, absolutely. Positively. And then pick yourself up in 002 later on with all the profits. Pick yourself up in 002. Congrats on the big show, Craig. Nicely done. Well, thank you. Thank you, my friend. I think maybe Jason was trolling when he said he sold all his Bitcoin. You know what I think he might have done?
I hope not.
Maybe he did that to try to get more people to panic. Bree, what do you think about this? Maybe he did that to try to get more people to panic sell so that he could buy more cheap Bitcoin. Maybe he never actually sold his at all. He just said he sold it so that it would trigger other people selling so that he could then buy more Bitcoin at a cheap price. I think he was manipulating the market. I think that's what he was doing. Brett's in the house. Yeah, I got an offer on my lefty GMT around 24K. Oh my gosh, yes, let that thing go, because that's an abomination anyway. I don't like that watch. That's a weird looking watch. That's the one where they put the winding crown on the wrong side for like left-handed people. I think you saw a picture of it, Bree.
Oh,
it was funky looking.
Yeah,
it's just funky looking. I can't wrap my head around that one.
I mean, your left, you right with your left, and like.
I know, but I still want the crown on this side. I wear my watch on my left hand. I don't wear it on my right hand. That one's designed to be worn on the right, and I wouldn't do that anyway. So, I mean, I'm left-handed and I still wear it on my left hand. I think most left-handed people wear their watch on their left hand.
Yeah.
That's just how we do. I mean, so yeah. Let's see. Mind a BTC out of it, Craig. Yes, that's what you got to do. That's really low on the lefty. They were going for 40 plus not too long ago. Prices really dropping. Yeah. But if he can get out of it at 24, my gosh, he can get more than a whole Bitcoin out of that. 12K and 24K out. Yeah. Let's see. But profit is a profit. Yes. I found out about Rolex makes Tudor. Yeah, they're a cheap. They're a poor man's Rolex. They're not the way to go. I do not have left hand, says Carlos. Daniel says yes. He says yes to Daniel. Yeah, that watch market is dead. I don't think it's completely dead yet. He says completely. I think it's getting soft for sure. And if you can get out, if you can get 24, that's still pretty good. That's a nice, healthy profit. All right, Bree, we're going to wrap it up.
All right.
Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. And Bree, you got to post a photo in the shot group. And by the way, if anybody has a shot motorcycle jacket that are listening, there is a Facebook group for shot motorcycle jackets that you can join and post a photo. Do you have a photo of you? Maybe you can do one of you wearing one of the jackets, Bree?
Yes. The one that has the Bitcoin pin.
No, I think you have to do the one that's like the motorcycle jacket.
Oh, the big motorcycle jacket.
And say something like, this is an old motorcycle jacket that I have. The lining and all is torn out. Do you think it's a shot? Do something like that and see what the people say.
Okay. But it might be too sexy.
Oh, you don't have any that aren't sexy?
No.
I
mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they aren't that sexy, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I
hear
should
you.
tell them to you, and then you can decide.
Yeah, text one to me, and I'll tell you. Text me the one that's the least sexy, and I'll tell you if it's okay. Otherwise, we might have to take some more the next shoot.
Okay.
And then we could take some with the real shot coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With yours.
Let's see. Brett says, Kyle says next Tuesday we need to get another show. Okay, we'll shoot for that. Email me. We can go live with the lefty this weekend, Craig, before I sell it. Brett in the house. Coordinate with Kyle. Okay, coordinate with Kyle, and we'll try to figure it out. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things that you do, and we'll do another show.
See ya.
Oh, let's do a time check really quick before we go. I'm going to make that full screen. Solo layout. There we go. Time check. Official time check. The Grand Seiko 231 Stunner. Still doing what it does. See that second hand just going right on around. Just going right on around, doing what it does. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Have a great Thanksgiving. We are out of here.